Coming up on a newscast. The 2023 budget is set to be passed at the National Assembly. Rival parties finally agreed on 1% cuts in all tax brackets. The Justice Ministry's Pardon Review Committee discussed a list of presidential pardons ahead of the new year. Some of the standout figures include former President Myung-bak and former Governor Kim Kyoung-soo. North Korea fired more missiles toward waters off its east coast. The provocation comes after the regime's foreign ministry denied shipping munitions to Russia.
Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The National Assembly will pass a much-delayed budget for next year. Rival parties spent weeks narrowing differences on spending cuts and tax revisions. Lee Kyung-eun starts us off.
The 2023 budget is set to finally pass the National Assembly Friday night, just 1 week before the start of the first full year under the Yoon Suk-yeol administration. The rival parties ended weeks of wrangling with a last-minute deal on Thursday that reflected both sides' interests, at least partially. As for the ruling People Power Party, it managed to keep the budget for President Yoon's key policy drives, despite a cut of $3.6 billion from the government's original proposal of $500 billion. The fiercely debated spending cut came from cutting the budget in half for the new bureau at the Interior and Safety Ministry that oversees the police, and the budget for the unit at the Justice Ministry tasked with vetting government personnel, both of which are set up by Yoon's presidential decree. This way, the ruling bloc avoided the complete scrapping opposition Democratic Party. The ruling bloc also maintained the budget linked to Yoon's campaign pledges, like the creating a park in Yongsan where the new presidential office is, and increasing the supply of public housing. In the meantime, the opposition DP secured extra funding for its own agendas worth some $3 billion, a major portion of which will be used to issue local gift vouchers and public rental housing, in line with its chairman Lee Jae-myung's former presidential campaign pledges. Just as important as the budget were tax revisions, which are usually passed along with the budget. The most contentious issue of corporate taxes, where for the highest rate, the government wanted a cut of 3 percentage points from the current 25%, brought out clashes between the rival blocs over ideology. But they've settled on a 1 percentage point cut for each of the 4 tax brackets. Also, new capital gains tax slated to be imposed next year has been postponed for 2 years at the PPP's request. And at the DP's request, there'll be more tax benefits for monthly rent paid by low to mid-income earners. Lawmakers missed the legal deadline for the budget on December 2nd, and for the first time since 2014, they also went past the end of Parliament's regular session on the 9th. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea's main policy goal in the new year will continue to be stabilizing inflation, meaning more rate hikes. The aim is to bring consumer inflation down closer to the BOK's target of 2%. The central bank expects inflation to fall to 3.6% overall next year, while core consumer prices, excluding volatile fresh food prices, to dip to the high 2% range. In deciding on interest rates, it will take into account the market situation and other factors. Over the last year, the central bank raised key rate by 275 basis points to 3.25%. From 2024, large multinational enterprises may have to pay taxes in countries where they make sales, regardless of the location of their headquarters. The South Korean Finance Ministry announced that the OECD unveiled a draft agreement of its cross-border tax rule overhaul aimed at taxing tech giants like Amazon and Apple. It's the first pillar of the two-track reform. Large multinationals that make 20 billion euros or about $21 billion in revenue or more are required to pay taxes in the countries where their customers are. Under the agreement, member states are not allowed to implement their own digital taxation systems. Back here in the nation, the Justice Ministry's Pardon Review Committee held a meeting to decide the list of presidential pardons ahead of the new year. On the list, former President Myung-bak and former Governor Kim Kyoung-soo. Lee Shi-woo tells us more.
Former President Myung-bak and former Gyeongsang-namdo Province Governor Kim Kyoung-soo are among those expected to receive end-of-year special pardons. According to sources in the legal circle, the Pardon Review Committee of South Korea's Ministry of Justice made the decision after a day-long review on Friday. Former President Lee will be granted a pardon with reinstatement, while the former Governor Kim will receive one without reinstatement, which will disqualify him from running for office until 2028. Lee in 2020 was given a 17-year prison sentence for charges that included embezzlement and bribery. His sentence has since been suspended due to health reasons. Kim, meanwhile, is currently serving a 2-year prison sentence for manipulating online political opinion posts. Former Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan and 3 former heads of the National Intelligence Service are among those expected to receive pardons. Choi was found guilty of receiving bribes from the NIS during former President Park Geun-hye's presidency, while the heads of NIS were found guilty of bribing former President Park. Chun Byung-hun, the former Blue House Senior Secretary for Political Affairs charged with corruption, is also expected to receive a pardon. The Minister of Justice Han Dong-hoon will report the list of people to President Yoon Suk-yeol in the near future. The president will make the final decision, and it could differ from that of the Pardon Review Committee. It's expected that President Yoon will finalize the list at a cabinet meeting on the 27th and grant pardons the next day. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Local health officials will lift the mask mandate only if certain conditions are met, such as a decline in infections. However, they did not provide any specific timeline. Kim Kyoung-soo has the latest.
South Korean health officials on Friday morning decided that wearing masks indoors will be advised rather than mandatory. But this doesn't mean masks can be taken off immediately, as officials are still to decide when exactly the mandate will be eased or even lifted. What's being considered is a 2-step process. Step 1 is making masks optional except for places like medical facilities, pharmacies, and on public transport. Step 2 is lifting the indoor mask mandate completely when the COVID-19 alarm level is lowered to orange or yellow from the current red. But medical experts said this winter isn't the right time, especially with case numbers being as high as they are.
The reason the pandemic is continuing is because of the new variants. Until now, we had Alpha, Delta, and Omicron variants. Most recently, we had BN1 and BQ1 variants, so the pandemic continues. The best indicator for an endemic is when there are no more variants.
He also stressed the importance of wearing masks.
Wearing masks prevents you from catching the virus, but it also protects those around you, so they're definitely worth wearing. The lifting of the indoor mask mandate can always be done when there are no more variants and we have fewer cases. It doesn't require much preparation, so there's no need to rush into it.
Health authorities expect case levels to peak in January, and then if there's an overall decline for 2 weeks, another meeting can be held with infectious disease experts. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The mercury dipped to lows not seen this winter, almost minus 14 degrees Celsius in Seoul, with a dangerous wind chill, making it feel more like below 22. Heavy snow in some regions caused flights to be grounded. Kim Kyoung-soo brings the updates.
A biting cold wave is gripping South Korea. Temperatures dropped to their lowest point so far this winter season early Friday. In Seoul, temperatures dropped below minus 13 degrees Celsius. The wind chill making it feel like minus 22. From the central regions to the east coast, temperatures plunged far below sub-zero. Daegalryong, a mountainous region in Gangwon-do province, saw minus 22 degrees. Forecasters say that after hitting fresh lows on Wednesday, the winter chill may ease a bit in the coming days.
The winds are going to simmer down on Saturday and Sunday, so people are going to feel less cold than they did today.
But this is just the start of the winter. So overall temperatures are going to continue to drop throughout the rest of the season, making it a colder winter than average.
Temperatures are going to continue to rise and fall, but when they do fall, they're going to fall more steeply than last time. So overall temperatures are going to get lower.
The West Coast and Jeju Island also saw heavy snowfall on Friday. Some regions in Jeollabuk-do province and mountainous regions of Jeju Island saw more than 40 centimeters of snow. Multiple morning flights in and out of Jeju have been canceled. Roads in the snowy regions of Jeollabuk-do province are closed, and passenger ships in Jeju and Jeollabuk-do remain docked. The nation's weather agency forecasts the west coast and the regions of Jeju that saw snowfall on Friday morning may see more snow on Saturday, up to an extra 30 centimeters. Kim Kyoung-soo, Arirang News.
North Korea fired more missiles toward waters off its east coast. This came after Pyongyang's foreign ministry denied shipping munitions to Moscow. Bae Eun-ji gets us up to speed with the developments.
At about 4:30 p.m. on Friday, North Korea launched 2 short-range ballistic missiles from the Sunan area of Pyongyang. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles flew 250 and 350 kilometers each before landing in the East Sea. He strongly urged the North to put an immediate halt to such actions, saying that the ballistic missile launch is a serious provocation and one that poses a threat to the peace and security of the Korean Peninsula, as well as the international community. The JCS added that it's closely cooperating with the U.S. to maintain strong defense readiness. Hours before the launch, Pyongyang's foreign ministry had issued a statement denying a Japanese media report on munitions shipments to Russia, calling it groundless. It said it has never carried out arms transactions with Russia and criticized Washington for giving lethal weapons to Ukraine. Today's launch comes just 5 days after the regime fired 2 medium-range missiles over the weekend in what it called an important test for the spy satellite program it plans to complete by April. It's also the latest in an unprecedented number of missile tests conducted by North Korea this year. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
38 North says the regime is making progress in developing solid-fuel missiles and projects it may display a new ICBM at an upcoming military parade, indicating that North Korea conducted a ground test of large solid propellant rocket motor. The U.S.-based think tank believes the regime is likely developing a solid ICBM or a solid SLBM with the range of an ICBM. It explained that solids are safer to handle in the field than liquids and projects Pyongyang will conduct more ground tests next year. Washington confirmed Pyongyang has been delivering weapons to the Russian mercenary outfit known as the Wagner Group, operating in Ukraine. The White House announced the U.S. plans to raise the issue at the UNSC. Shin Se-byuk has the details.
The White House on Thursday said North Korea has sold weapons to a private Russian military company, the Wagner Group. Often called Russian President Vladimir Putin's off-the-books troops, the mercenary group has been a key player in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The news, first reported by Reuters, was confirmed by U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby.
Today, we can confirm that North Korea has completed an initial arms delivery to Wagner, which paid for that equipment. Last month, North Korea delivered infantry rockets and missiles into Russia for use by Wagner.
The move apparently indicates that the Wagner Group is expanding its role in the war. Kirby said the amount delivered will not change the battlefield dynamics, but added more military equipment is expected. Meanwhile, Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin denied the assertion as gossip and speculation. The White House also hinted at its future moves regarding the issue.
We're going to raise these violations with the Security Council alongside of our allies and partners.
It also condemned Pyongyang for its action and called for it to immediately cease these deliveries. This only came a day after the Biden administration announced new sanctions on technology exports to the Wagner Group. This also followed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington on Wednesday. During his speech to Congress, Zelensky thanked Washington for its military assistance and said more was needed to fend off Russian advances. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
U.S. pledged more financial and military support for Ukraine. In response, President Vladimir Putin said Russia will find ways to counter such systems, and he believes the war will end with negotiations. Yoon Jin reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky this week visited the White House and also addressed Congress in the khaki fatigues that have been his public uniform throughout the 300 days of conflict. During his visit, Washington reaffirmed its continued support for Ukraine, confirming that the U.S. will supply the Patriot air defense missile system to Ukraine as a part of a $1.86 billion military aid package. The Patriot missiles are a part of an advanced surface-to-air defense system capable of shooting down cruise missiles, aircraft, and short-range ballistic missiles. After the White House's promise for continued and unwavering U.S. support, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that Russia wants to end the war in Ukraine, and that would inevitably involve a diplomatic situation.
One way or another, all armed conflicts end with some kind of negotiations on the diplomatic track. And we never refused. It's the leadership of Ukraine that has forbidden itself to negotiate.
On Thursday, following Putin's remarks that he would find a way to counter the Patriot air defense missile system, the finance ministers of the Group of 7 wealthy nations, the G7, mobilized up to $32 billion in economic support for Ukraine next year. The ministers added that they are prepared to give more if needed.
Therefore, we as the G7 have made it very clear today that we will not reduce our support for Ukraine, not over the festive season and not in the new year. Not as long as Russia is waging this brutal war of aggression, which is against international law.
There still remains some skepticism among the House Republicans about continuing such full support to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky tried to get their backing during his speech to the U.S. Congress, saying that the financial support Ukraine is getting is not charity, rather it is an investment in global security and democracy. Iunjin, Arirang News.
Arirang TV will air K-pop content on 5 Chinese online platforms. That includes Douyin, which is what TikTok is called in China. The content will be uploaded weekly. The station plans to further expand to culture and tour-related programs as well. This is looked to help copyrighted K-content to reach audiences in other countries through legitimate paths. There's a local college seeking to prepare its students to become entrepreneurs, as it can be hard to get funding for a startup. Kacheon University is helping with that too. Jung Eun-ju has the full story.
40 students take a class about marketing techniques. All are enrolled on courses from different faculties but have started taking lectures together this semester. They are students at Kacheon University's newly established startup college, which is also the first of its kind in South Korea. It's operated in 2 stages called the Startup Semester and the Startup Project. First, students spend a semester taking courses about starting a business. Among them, 15 are selected to complete the Startup Project curriculum for the next 3 semesters after they pass a test. The selected students receive benefits such as full scholarships and a bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship. The school also provides up to 150 million won to standout teams to start their own businesses, allowing students to focus on their startup without having to give up a college education.
First, I think the biggest advantage is that you can prepare your business without leaving school. I also have friends around me who work hard together that help me keep going.
Students can also collaborate with business experts at the startup college.
Our school guarantees graduation and helps students that can't start a business because they don't have the funds. We'll create a school where students can start a business and make their dreams come true.
Establishing the startup college has made Kacheon University one of the most active universities for students looking to become entrepreneurs. Jung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now. A few weeks ago, to mark the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, we took a look back at the history of Korean Braille and how it's being taught here in the country. Today, let's shed light on how Braille-friendly South Korea is. Song Yoo-jin provides a closer look.
Just like any other commuter in South Korea, Han Hae-kyung takes the subway and bus to and from work every day. But because of her visual impairment, using public transport is not always easy.
It's really hard to ride the bus because we don't know which bus has arrived, where the card reader and the exit door are. Subways are better because they have Braille signs on handrails and screen doors. But some don't tell us which exit we're heading to or which direction of the subway we're waiting for. Some even have gum on them or have been attached upside down.
This made me wonder about the availability of Braille in South Korea. Out of around 250,000 visually impaired people in the country, around 10% use Braille. For these people, Braille is the only way they can independently access information. So I decided to visit places we go on a daily basis and check out how friendly they are to Braille users. And the result?
So I just took a look around at a convenience store and this grocery store, and at both places, it was really hard for me to find products with Braille labels on. Now, what this means is that despite a wide selection of goods, any visually impaired customer would find their choice limited to a much smaller range of items.
Apart from some food, drinks, and medicine, no other products were available in Braille, even necessities like sanitary pads. But items that did have labels in Braille had problems. In terms of food, only instant cup noodles and rice from certain brands had Braille guides. Some labels were really shallow to touch and understand. Most Braille signs on beverages lack detail. On cans of soda, it just says beverage or soft drink. On beer, it said only that, beer, and not which brand it was. This is because South Korea does not mandate the use of Braille on food and drink. It is only advised. Research done by the Korea Food Industry Association last year showed that 95% of around 160 food companies surveyed did not have Braille labels for their items. One expert says that bringing Braille into everyday life will be the key.
So please make Braille mainstream. Just don't make it something for university textbooks. Use it on jewelry, use it on playing cards, on Scrabble, use it in recipes. That goes on bottles of sauces for us.
Through these efforts, South Korea can become Braille friendlier. 송유진, Arirang News.
Ice-cold temperatures will carry on for this Christmas weekend. The extremely cold air mass will keep temperatures much lower than the seasonal average. Tomorrow, morning lows will stay frigid in Seoul at minus 13 degrees Celsius. Cold wave conditions will persist until Sunday, which is Christmas Day. Temperatures will feel a couple degrees colder than the actual readings, so make sure to wrap up extra warm. In the meantime, heavy snow will continue on for western parts of the country. For Jeollado provinces, expect up to 20 centimeters of heavy snowfall. For mountainous regions of Jeju Island, up to 30 centimeters are in the forecast. Other parts of inland regions will see relatively less snowfall. However, road conditions will be dangerous at times due to black ice and frost. Drivers are urged to use extra caution for Christmas travel. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daejeon will be starting off at minus 13 degrees. And highs in Seoul will get up to minus 3, Daejeon 0. Busan will be reaching 6 degrees Celsius. Temperatures will get a touch higher next week with clear skies for Seoul. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
This is where we have to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.